Welcome once again, my fellow manipulators of Digital Fate. I'm Richie, this is Capricorn, and today we're back with part 2 of the spoiler season debut for the Final Fantasy Magic the Gathering set. We already covered all of the rares, uncommons, and commons in the debut video part 1, which I'm going to link in the description and the comments for you if you haven't seen that already. The majority of the cards spoiled at the debut over the weekend were covered in that video, but in this video we're going to cover all of the mythics, and they spoiled way more mythics on day 1 than I think they've ever done for a set before, so we do have a good amount of cards to go over. I'm also going to include the commander cards and some of the bonus sheet alternate art treatments that they covered in this video as well. We're going to get through that stuff really quick at the beginning and then get to the juicy stuff at the end with the mythics. So we're gonna just rip through this as quick as we can, guys, and get all caught up. If you wouldn't mind, please like the video. It does help the channel grow. It helps bring in more traffic, and I would appreciate it so much. And subscribe if you're new, because I have a ton of crazy content on the way. More of these spoiler videos and a bunch of cool deck techs. So let's get to it. The first card we're going to talk about today is Secret Rendezvous. And they did something really interesting with this card, which is why I really want to talk about it. This is 2 white and 1 for a sorcery. You and target opponent each draw 3 cards. Kind of interesting, maybe useful in some kind of a 𝐽𝑜𝐿𝐷𝑟𝑎𝑛 deck, even though 𝐽𝑜𝐿𝐷𝑟𝑎𝑛 is very close to rotating out of standard. But what's really noticeably interesting about this, why did I even bring up standard? This is a commander card. I got standard on the brain, guys. But what's notable about this card, and what I think is so cool about it and so flavorful, is there's actually multiple art treatments for this, because in the Final Fantasy VII video game, you can, depending on the actions you take throughout the game, take one of 4 different characters on this date at the Golden Saucer, and so they have a different art depicting each of those potential dates. And so the second one is Aerith, and then the third one is Barrett, and then the fourth one is Tifa. So they actually have all 4 of those characters that you can take on the date, which is kind of interesting, but just an interesting card in general. I like that they're going this direction and having different art treatments just to flavorfully fit with the games. They've done that on a number of cards so far, and I'm pretty excited about it. Next up, we've got Herald's Horn. This is an artifact for 3 mana. As it enters, you choose a creature type. Creature spells you cast of the chosen type cost 1 less to cast. And at the beginning of your upkeep, you look at the top card of your library. If it's a creature card of the chosen type, you may reveal it and put it into your hand. This is pretty awesome. There's obviously some really cool tribes coming with this set. You know, you could go like Chocobo tribal. Maybe you can even go Moogle tribal. It just seems really awesome to put really in any tribal deck. It gives you cost reduction. You know, it gives you card advantage pretty much every single turn once you have this out, unless your opponent gets rid of it. So I think this is pretty cool, and the art's pretty awesome too. Next up, we've got Summon Esper Valagarmanda. This is a 3/3 saga creature for 1 red and 3. On chapter 1, you exile an instant or sorcery card from each graveyard. And then on chapter 2, 3, and 4, you add 1 red mana for each lore counter on this saga, and you may cast an instant or sorcery card exiled with this saga, and mana of any type can be spent to cast that spell, which is kind of interesting. This is obvious why it's a commander card, because if you have a whole bunch of players to trigger that chapter 1 on, you have a bunch of things exiled, and then over the course of the next 3 turns, you can choose what order, you know, on what turns you want to play which of those cards, which is pretty interesting. But I mean, just getting a 3/3 flying haste creature for 4 that also gives you all of this value seems kind of awesome. It would be a lot better in standard, I think, having that flying haste body. I don't know how relevant that ends up being in Commander, where there's, you know, more players at the table and attacks are a little bit more risky. But still a pretty cool card. I like what it's trying to do here, and it should be a pretty cool inclusion in certain Commander decks. Next up, we've got Emmett Selk of the Third Seat. This is a 3/4 legendary Elder Wizard for 4 mana in the colors of Dimir. Spells you cast from your graveyard cost 2 less to cast. Whenever 1 or more opponents lose life, you may cast target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard. If that spell would be put into your graveyard, exile it instead. Do this only once each turn. So every time they lose life, you get to play something from your graveyard, and everything you play from your graveyard is going to cost 2 mana less, which is kind of nuts. Obviously, this guy gets way better if you have other cards in your commander deck that's allowing you to play stuff from your graveyard, because you're able to use that cost reduction on all of the things that are playing stuff from your graveyard, not just the M itself's ability. But having a built-in way to replay things from your graveyard as well is pretty nice, and he just seems like he's going to be a really fun commander. Next up is the last commander spoiler during the debut weekend, and that's Sephiroth Fallen Hero. This is a 7/5 legendary creature, human avatar soldier. 5 mana in the colors of Boros, and has the Jenova Cells ability. Whenever Sephiroth attacks, you may put a cell counter on target creature. Until end of turn, each modified creature you control has base power and toughness 7/5, and then it has the reunion ability. So for 3 mana, you sacrifice a modified creature, return this card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. To me, that's the most interesting part of this card, is if you can just keep getting this into your graveyard. If you're in a deck that just has so many different ways to modify your creatures, whether it's counters or auras or equipment or whatever, you just always have some crappy little sack fodder. You can just keep bringing him back from the graveyard no matter what. Every time they kill him, you just sacrifice your worst dude, keep bringing him back, and all of your modified dudes are going to swing as 7/5s, which is nice. It is worth noting that Sephiroth Fallen Hero himself has to actually attack in order for your attacking creatures to be 7/5s, the ones that are modified. But still, being able to keep putting this guy on the board and eventually get him to stick, and then swing in, and all of your little modified guys are now 7/5s, and all of their modifications stack on top of that, is just nuts. But again, my favorite part about this card is just how it's so hard to really get rid of him. Even if you make him your commander, you almost never have to pay the commander tax, because you just let him go to the graveyard every time. It just, I don't know. Something about this card just screams at me that it needs to be built, that we need to mess around with it in Commander for sure, and it just seems super fun. But next up, we've got the bonus sheet cards. These are the alternate art treatments that are in the flavor of Final Fantasy, but existing cards. So first of which is the Imperial City of Arcades, which is actually a new art version of Wall of Omens. This is a 0/4 wall for 1 white and 1, has Defender, and when this creature enters, you draw a card. So pretty cool alternate art that you can find on the bonus sheet sections of a booster pack. There's a chance that these cards can show up, a rare chance in booster packs. Just seems pretty interesting. Next up, we've got Firion Swordmaster, a 2/2. A new art version of SRAM Senior Edificer, which is a 2/2 legendary dwarf advisor for 1 white and 1, and whenever you cast an aura, equipment, or vehicle spell, you draw a card. Next up, we've got the Cloud Sea Djinn, which is a new art treatment for Nyxbloom Ancient. This is a 5/5 enchantment creature elemental with trample for 3 green and 4, and if you tap a permanent for mana, it produces 3 times as much of that mana instead. And then we also have Zidane Tribal here, which is a new art treatment for Ragavan, Nimble Pilferer, which oddly just works perfectly, in my opinion. And this is a 2/1 legendary monkey pirate for 1 red, and when he deals combat damage to a player, you create a treasure token and exile the top card of that player's library. Until end of turn, you may cast that card. Has the dash ability for 1 red and 1, so it comes out with haste but returns to your hand if you use that. Everybody knows Ragavan. This card is legendary, but seeing a Zidane Tribal art treatment for it is pretty cool. And then the last alternate art we have in the bonus sheet is probably my favorite. This is Sephiroth the Savior. I think this might be Safer Sephiroth. I'm not sure if Sephiroth the Savior and Safer Sephiroth are the same, and maybe that's a translation thing, but I do remember Safer Sephiroth from Final Fantasy VII. If you know the answer to that, let me know in the comments. But this is a new alternate art treatment for Atraxa Grand Unifier, which is the big 7/7 7-mana Atraxa that has been used in Reanimator decks ever since it first appeared, and will be for all time. Flying, Vigilance, Death Touch, Lifelink. When it enters, you reveal the top 10 cards of your library, and for each card type, you can put a card of that type into your hand. This card has been bonkers in Standard and pretty much everywhere. But getting a Sephiroth, the savior version of this, just seems really awesome. But with all of that out of the way, we're finally getting to the standard legal mythics that were spoiled during debut weekend, and I can't wait. First up, we have Traveling Chocobo, 1 green and 2 for a 3/2 bird. You may look at the top card of your library anytime. You may play lands and cast bird spells from the top of your library. If a land or bird you control entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. This card is going to be bananas in some kind of a bird tribal, chocobo tribal, landfall tribal insanity. Yeah, it's very obvious to me with the hints we've gotten with some of the cards that have been spoiled so far that Chocobo Landfall is absolutely going to be a thing, and this card just seems to be doubling down on it. Being able to double up all of your landfall triggers or all of your birds entering triggers. We already saw Bart's and Boku yesterday, where you get to basically bite something when it comes into play and kill it. And that counts as a trigger from a bird, so you'd get a double trigger of that. You get to kill 2 things, which just seems nuts. This just does everything, getting you free value off the top of your deck and doubling all those triggers. I think the crazy part to me is the fact that it doubles all the triggers from your lands and birds, not one or the other. That's what really pushes this over the top and makes me think that this archetype is going to be absolutely nuts in Standard. And not only that, but they're doing something really cool with this card, and they're giving us alternate art treatments, because this card is supposed to represent the Chocobo that you can get in Final Fantasy VII. Or really, it's, the Chocobo you can get in all the games, but the alternate art treatments they're doing are sort of representing the flavor that comes from Final Fantasy VII of being able to capture or breed different color Chocobos, different types of Chocobos, and so they have that with alternate art treatments for this card. The first of which is just the normal one, but then we have a pink Chocobo, we have a blue Chocobo, we have a green Chocobo, we have the black Chocobo, which I think is only in Japanese, which is really interesting because it's one of the Final Fantasy VII creators' favorite versions of the Chocobo, so they decided to sort of like make this in honor of him, and I think because of that, it's always going to be in Japanese. I could be wrong. Let me know in the comments if you know better than me, but I'm pretty sure that's what's going on here. And then there is a very, very special version of the card, the Golden Chocobo, which is numbered to 77. This is the one card in the set that is actually a limited edition numbered print that there are only 77 in existence, and if you happen to pull one, it's probably going to be worth a lot of money. I'm kind of bummed out about that because I'd love to collect, 4 copies of the Golden Chocobo and use that as the version in my decks. And that's going to be next to impossible to do. So that part's kind of a bummer. We don't have full confirmation that there isn't a normal version of the Golden Chocobo, but I'm almost certain it's only this numbered out of 77 version. Kind of a bummer. That being said, if you manage to pull one, it's going to be pretty awesome and it's going to feel really good. So, I don't know. Really, really cool card, but a double-bladed sword as far as how I feel about there only being 77 of these. Next up, we've got Absolute Virtue, which is one of the hardest bosses in Final Fantasy XI, which was the first MMO version of Final Fantasy. This is an 8/8 legendary avatar warrior for a whopping 8 mana in the colors of Azorius, but it can't be countered, it has flying, and you have protection from each of your opponents. That is just absurd. I kind of just want to make this as a commander deck, just because that just seems super fun. Like, you just jam it and like your opponents can't do anything unless it doesn't target, or I don't even know, man. This just does so much. It just seems super crazy. It's also probably going to be a prime candidate in standard decks as a reanimator target. Just having protection from your opponent, we've seen how crazy something like that can be with like the One Ring, and having a creature that can do that. I guess the one saving grace is that this creature doesn't have protection in any way. You can just remove it with creature removal, so it's not like the end-all be-all. That being said, I'm sure somebody will come up with some kind of a combo deck that gets us into play cheap or free, from the graveyard in a Reanimator deck or in an Omniscience deck or whatever, and then put something on it that gives it, hexproof or indestructible or whatever and just tries to combo out to a win that way. I could definitely see it coming. In fact, I believe in Tarkir Dragonstorm we got a card that brings something back from the graveyard with a hexproof and an indestructible counter on it, right? It seems like that card was like made for this. Was that one called Perenation? I think it was called Perenation. Let me know in the comments if I got that right. But it seems like now that I think about it, that card was probably made for this card. That's like, how do you win at that point? You know, that's just nuts. But seems pretty fun. Next up, we've got Yuna, Hope of Spira. This is a 3/5 legendary human cleric for 5 mana in the colors of Selesnya. During your turn, Yuna and enchantment creatures you control have Trample, Lifelink, and Ward 2. So she's already awesome as soon as she hits the battlefield if you're in like an enchantment creature deck, which makes sense because enchantment creatures in this set are summons, and Yuna is a summoner in Final Fantasy X, so it's kind of perfect. But it's also cool that they made it vague enough that it doesn't only work with the summons, right? If you have other enchantment creatures from other sets, this is going to synergize with those, and that just seems really, really cool to me. And then also she has this other ability. At the beginning of your end step, return up to 1 target enchantment card from your graveyard to the battlefield with a finality counter on it. And that's going to trigger just every turn. That also seems nuts. It's one of those things that the turn you play it, you're probably going to get to trigger that before they get a chance to kill her. You know, you wait and play it when they're tapped out. You make sure that you get that trigger before they get to untap and kill her. And then no matter what, you got your best enchantment back from the graveyard. And maybe you got some of the value from her first ability as well. So even if they kill her, you're still up on value. And if they don't kill her, it's absolutely backbreaking. If this thing survives multiple turns, you're just going to take over the game, right? That's just an insane amount of value. And it doesn't even care about the cost of the enchantment. You could bring back an Omniscience with Yuna. Oh no. Is that going to be a deck? Is Omniscience here to stay in Standard? Oh god. Please god no. I am so sick of Omniscience decks already. I don't want anything to do with it. That's what people are going to use this with, aren't they? Yeah, that's what they're going to do. And yeah, no. I don't want that. God damn it. Okay, Yuna. Next up, we've got 𝑺𝑑𝑐ℎ𝑒, a 0/3 legendary wizard for 3 mana in the colors of Izzet, and you can pay 0 to add X mana in any combination of blue or red, where X is 𝑺𝑑𝑐ℎ𝑒's power, activate only during your turn and only once each turn, and whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you put a +1/+1 counter on 𝑺𝑑𝑐ℎ𝑒, and it deals 1 damage to each opponent. This card feels kinda busted to me. Like, if you can get this out and untap with it and have all of your mana available, and then you just play a bunch of buff spells on him, make his power super huge, not to mention it's going to get additional +1/+1 counters. It's kind of like a prowess that lasts forever, which is it's just super prowess. Super prowess plus deal a damage when you prowess, plus then whatever it gets buffed up to when you run out of mana. Then you just use its 0 ability and make a whole bunch of mana, and then you just keep going? This just seems insane in prowess decks to me. This is like, I would be very, very surprised if this doesn't end up a staple. I think the only thing going against it is the fact that it is 3 mana, and right now Standard is so crazy that a lot of times you can end the game by turn 3 or 4. So in that way, in a prowess deck, it's possible, I don't think it's likely, but it's possible that this could be overkill, that this could be just win more. But even if it's not used in like the prowess aggro deck, imagine playing this with Agatha's Soul Cauldron, and I know I bring that up almost every set whenever there's a card that uses it well, but this has to be the ultimate card to use with Agatha's Soul Cauldron, right? Exile it from your graveyard, all of your creatures with counters then become copies of VV, and you can just pay 0 on all of them to immediately add a whole bunch of mana, and then just use it all to combo off into insanity. That has to be a deck. We have to build that. That's just nuts. If you have a bunch of creatures already out with +1/+1 counters, the second you exile this with a Soul Cauldron, all of them can just make a ton of mana for free. Especially if they already have high power. You don't even need to worry about pumping up their power, right? They're probably all going to have, even if they don't have a ton of power, if you go wide with a bunch of creatures that, you know, 2 power, 3 power, whatever the case may be, you're still going to make a ton of mana. And even more if they're pumped up with +1/+1 counters. I feel like there's a deck here. I feel like there's a deck here for sure. If you have ideas about what to use this card with and how to make that deck work, definitely let me know in the comments. I feel like this is just bananas. But we're going to move on. Next up, we've got Lightning, Army of 1. This is a 3/2 legendary creature human soldier for 3 mana in the colors of Boros. It has First Strike, Trample, and Lifelink, which is already absolutely insane for a 3-drop. Like, Boros aggro, this is like an auto-include, I think, and it's hard for 3-drops to make the cut in decks like that are so fast, but this one absolutely does. The Lifelink to help buffer your life total against other aggro decks. First Strike is just insane, right? First Strike on this is nuts. But it also has the stagger ability, and this is where it gets really crazy. Whenever Lightning deals combat damage to a player, until your next turn, if a source would deal damage to that player or a permanent that player controls, it deals double that damage instead. And here's what's crazy. Because of the First Strike, it means that you're going to deal damage. As long as this doesn't get blocked, you're going to deal damage before all of your other creatures. So you hit, you turn on stagger, and then all of your other creatures that are dealing damage in combat in the normal damage phase, that's not the First Strike damage phase, are going to deal double damage. And that just seems nuts. And it doesn't even only work for things dealing damage to the player. You're going to deal double damage to, like, any creatures that are blocking those creatures as well, which is also kind of nuts. And because this has Trample, it means they can't chump block it to stop it, because you get through for First Strike Trample damage and still trigger the stagger, which is just insane to me. Yeah, everything about this card is nuts. If you buff it up to make sure the Trample gets through, even if they block with something big, it's still going to trigger stagger. Even if it dies in combat, which is very unlikely because of the First Strike, if you get through for damage, you still get the stagger. I don't know. Everything about this card just seems insane. I feel like it's going to be played in every Boros aggro deck, and if it isn't, I don't know. There's something wrong with me, or there's something wrong with you. I don't know what to tell you. This card is bananas. I can't believe it's being printed. It just seems crazy to me, but it's perfectly flavorful and super fun, so there's a part of me that's glad it exists, but there's another part of me that's like, what the hell are they thinking? This card is just nuts. Am I overestimating it? Let me know in the comments. Next up, we've got Terra Magical Adept, a 4/2 legendary human wizard warrior. Wizards and Warriors. That was an old NES game too. Anyway, for 3 mana in the colors of Gruul, when Terra enters, you mill 5 cards. You put up to 1 enchantment card milled this way into your hands. So even if they kill her right away, you're still getting value off Terra. You're getting stuff in your graveyard that you probably want there. And if you're playing enough enchantments, which you'd have to be in order to bother playing Terra, you're going to get free value back to your hand even if they kill her. But she gets even crazier, because she has the Trance ability. For 6 mana, you tap her, exile her, and then return it to the battlefield transformed under its owner's control, but you can only activate it as a sorcery, so you can't like block with her and then do it as a combat trick to save her or anything like that. But when she flips, she becomes Esper Terra, a 6/6 flying legendary enchantment creature saga wizard. On chapters 1, 2, and 3, you create a token that's a copy of target non-legendary enchantment you control. It gains haste. If it's a saga, you put up to 3 lore counters on it, and then sacrifice it at the beginning of your next end step. So obviously those abilities are going to be best used on other summons, because those are going to be some sagas, and get the value off of the extra lore counters, but they're also going to be creatures, and get the value off of the haste that they get. So very, very useful for other summons. But even if you're not targeting other summons with it, getting to copy any non-legendary enchantment, if it's a normal saga, getting the lore counters, if it's an enchantment creature, getting the haste, and then if in the case of other summons, just getting both, is pretty wild. Then on chapter 4, you add double WUBRG to your mana pool, and then return it to the battlefield as the front face up. It becomes Terra Magical Adept all over again. And when it does enter that way, you're going to have that 10 mana floating, mill 5 cards again, put up to 1 enchantment card this milled this way into your hand, and get to repeat the process. So she will have Summoning Sickness, so you won't be able to transfer her right away with the mana that you generated from her backside. but you are still going to get that trigger. You're going to get, you know, enchantment card back to your hand. You could find an Omniscience or something like that and then play it with all the mana that you just generated, or whatever your best enchantment is. Even if it's something super expensive, you now have all the mana in the world, and then on your next turn, once that summoning sickness wears off, you can use the trance ability again, flip her again, do it all over. It just seems absolutely crazy. This card is going to be absolutely nuts in any kind of enchantment deck, I think, but it's obviously going to be particularly good in a deck that's built around summons. I'm going to have to build a deck like that for sure, because the summon cards are the cards that I'm most excited about in this entire set. Sagas, as a card type in particular, are my favorite card type in the game. So getting sagas that are also creatures and that represent summons from the Final Fantasy games, which are some of my favorite aspects of the Final Fantasy games to begin with, this is just the perfect card type for me. And I'm super pumped about 𝑇𝑒𝑟𝑟𝑎. I think she's going to be nuts, but I'm super curious what you guys want to try to build around her, how you plan to use her. Let me know in the comments, because I really feel like there's a ton of potential on this one. It could go so many different directions. So let me know in the comments. But moving on, we've got Clive, Ifrit's Dominant. This is 2 red and 4 for a 5/5 legendary human noble warrior, and when he enters you can discard your hand and then draw cards equal to your devotion to red, which is already kind of nuts. If you just go wide in a mono red deck and you have a ton of red pips out, you just jam Clive, you don't even care if he sticks around. The value that you get immediately off of discarding a hand that might already be a 0 card hand, or maybe like 1 or 2 cards or whatever, and then just like refill your entire hand with cards if you're deep enough into devotion to red, is kind of nuts. He counts as 2 red pips himself, so even if you have nothing else red on the battlefield, you play him when your hand is empty as the last card from your hand, you're going to draw 2 cards. You're just going to draw 2 cards. And that seems kind of good, even if they kill him. 3 for 1 value there. And then you also have the ability to pay 2 red and 4, tap him and exile him, return him to the battlefield transformed under its owner's control only as a sorcery, very similar to Terra. He comes back as Ifrit, Warden of Inferno, which is perfectly flavorful for how this character is in the game and what he goes through in the game. This is just perfect. If you've played Final Fantasy 16, you already know. If you haven't, you probably should. I don't think it's the best Final Fantasy game. There are some weak points in my opinion, but the story is amazing, the set pieces are amazing, and it is definitely worth your time, so I would suggest playing that game. On Chapter 1, well, first of all, Ifrit, Warden of Inferno is a 9/9 legendary enchantment creature saga demon, so it could work in Demon Tribal, it could work with potentially Unholy Annex. I don't know if you want to go Rakdos, you might want to stay mono red for the extra red devotion, but it could be kinda cool in Demon Tribal maybe. On Chapter 1 you have Lunge. Ifrit fights up to 1 other target creature, and seeing as it's a 9/9, there aren't very many things in the game that Ifrit can't just fight and kill and still survive, which is kind of awesome. It just happens for free, right? You still have the 9/9 sitting there, but you're also killing their dude. On Chapters 2 and 3, you have the Brimstone ability, which adds 4 red mana to your mana pool, and if he has 3 or more lore counters on him, you exile him and return him to the battlefield front face up as Clive again. So on Chapter 2, you're going to get just 4 mana to spend however you want. On Chapter 3, you're going to get 4 mana and then immediately get Clive back, who's going to enter and draw you a bunch more cards for your devotion so that you have something to spend that 4 red mana on, in addition to all of your lands being untapped now. So this seems kind of crazy. It makes me wonder if like red deck wins, like some kind of a big red deck is viable in standard with something like this. Obviously this card alone isn't going to be enough to make like a big red deck viable in and of itself, but I could definitely see this being a part of the puzzle that helps a deck like that to be something that can be you know, just good enough in the meta to actually exist there and to be competitive. And I'd be interested to see if that actually pans out. We're going to have to wait and see what else is coming in the set. But again, this being a demon, there's also potential for some crazy demon tribal. It seems like we're getting a good amount of demons in this set. And Unholy Annex is a hell of a card, so we'll see how it goes. But let me know how you feel about Clive and Ifrit in the comments. Let me know how you'd use him. Because again, Guys, there's so much potential for a lot of these cards. There's so many different directions it could go, and it being just the very beginning of spoiler season, I haven't had a ton of time to really think through all of the details of exactly how I'd want to use them all. But there's so much potential. There's so many different ways we can use a card like this. Next up, we've got Kefka, Court Mage, which is another pretty crazy one. This is a 4/5 legendary human wizard for 5 mana in the colors of Grixis. Whenever Kefka enters or attacks, each player discards a card. Then you draw a card for each card type among cards discarded this way. Also has an ability to pay 8 colorless mana, and each opponent sacrifices a permanent of their choice, and then you transform Kefka. What's crazy about this card, in my opinion, is the fact that it triggers on enters or attacks, making your opponent discard a card as soon as you play it. You discard a card and draw at least 1 card as soon as you play it, maybe 2. That's just crazy card advantage right out of the gate. Like, you're putting what you want in the graveyard, you're drawing 1 card, maybe 2 cards, your opponent's discarding a card. It's just crazy value, and then that would be good enough on its own, but the fact that it does that every single time it attacks also is nuts. It wouldn't be quite as nuts if it only did it on attack, but because you get the automatic value as soon as it enters in case they kill it, but then you get the long-term value of getting to trigger that on every single time it attacks, the two of those things together is just absolutely bananas, in my opinion. Getting to just constantly make them discard a card every single turn, draw at least 1 card every single turn, gas up your graveyard with things you want in there every single turn unless they deal with it. And if you do happen to get to 8 mana, not only are you able to transform Kefka, but they have to sacrifice a permanent as well when you do it, which is perfectly flavorful with Kefka as a character, because when he flips into Kefka, Ruler of Ruin. It's the world of ruin. Everything gets destroyed in Final Fantasy VI, and you have to finish the game in this world of ruin. So having Kefka, Ruler of Ruin, and having them sacrifice a permanent in order to get there just makes perfect flavor sense. He is a 5/7 legendary avatar wizard with flying, and whenever an opponent loses life during your turn, you draw that many cards. So if you do manage to flip him, you just go ham, man. You make them lose a bunch of life, you draw a bunch of cards, and it's gonna be almost impossible for them to come back at that point, right? If you refill your whole grip, even if they kill him, right? If you're obviously not going to flip him unless you can do a bunch of damage right after you flip him, and then draw a bunch of cards, and then even if they kill him, you have all the cards, you have way more value than your opponent. You should be able to just go over the top and just nuke them into oblivion with all of the card draw that you just got, even if Kefka dies. He's just absolutely bonkers, but I honestly think I like the front side even more than the back side. I think there's going to be situations where you don't even flip him, even if you could flip him. Just because the value you get on every swing and making them discard cards is really good. Granted, if you do have those lines set up where you can do a bunch of damage when you flip them, you're going to be able to draw way more cards than, you could with just a normal Kefka attack trigger. So maybe you still flip them. But both sides are really good, and I don't know. I just think Kefka's nuts. Next up, we've got Sephiroth, Fabled Soldier. This is my favorite card spoiled so far, and I've heard some people in comments complaining that they don't like this Sephiroth card, that they expected so much more, and I think you guys are absolutely out of your mind. This is literally the best sacrifice deck, aristocrats deck card we've ever got for that archetype ever. It's way better than Blood Artist, and we never get cards as good as Blood Artist anymore. We get some cards that are close, but nothing that's actually Blood Artist that triggers on your opponent's creature. Sephiroth Fabled Soldier is so insane. A 3/3 legendary human avatar soldier for 1 black and 2, so pretty cheap. 1 more mana than a Blood Artist. But whenever Sephiroth enters or attacks, you can sacrifice a creature and draw a card. Sacrifice your worst creature, which if you're playing a sacrifice deck or an aristocrats deck, you want to sack your creatures anyway, so you're probably getting other triggers off of sacrificing that trigger that's getting you value, aside from the fact that you're drawing a card, right? But either way, you draw a card, and then even if they kill Sephiroth at that point, you still got your value, right? You got your sacrifice triggers, you drew a card off of him, and you're also getting value off the second ability. Whenever another creature dies, target opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. If this is the 4th time this ability is resolved this turn, transform Sephiroth. So he's literally a Blood Artist, right? Has the Blood Artist ability. It triggers off of your opponent's creatures dying as well, which we haven't seen in quite a while. All of the creatures that give us Blood Artist similar abilities that we've got into Standard in the last like 5-6 years have all been things that only trigger when your creatures die. So granted, he is a 3-drop, but for that 3-drop, you get the sack outlet on play, you get to draw a card off of that, you get a 3/3 body, and if this thing triggers as a Blood Artist 4 times in the same turn, he flips. And normally that would be maybe a bad side, because you look at it and you go, oh, I don't want to lose my ability to drain every single time a creature dies. I want to keep that. I don't want him to flip. Well, you're in luck. When he flips, he becomes Sephiroth, One-Winged Angel, a 5/5 flying legendary angel nightmare avatar. And remind you, this still only cost you 3 mana. You only ever paid 3 mana for this, and now it's a 5/5 flyer. Like, that alone is really good when you're only doing the things you want to do in your deck anyway. If you're running this, you're running a Sacrifice deck, an Aristocrats deck, you want to be sacking your stuff and draining them out. It's not like you had to, like, jump through a hoop and do something different than you would have wanted in order to get this to flip. It's just flipping naturally by your deck doing the thing it wants to do anyway. And as if that wasn't enough, getting a 3 mana creature that eventually becomes a 5/5 flyer for free, you also have Supernova. As this creature transforms into Sephiroth, One-Winged Angel, you get an emblem with whenever a creature dies, target opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So it actually becomes a super Blood Artist. You don't actually lose the Blood Artist ability from the front side of Sephiroth. It just gets turned into an emblem instead of a creature. So now they can't get rid of the ability, whereas before you flip them, they could kill the Sephiroth and make you lose the ability to get those Blood Artist triggers. Once he's transformed, you get it as an emblem. You still have it, you don't lose anything, except you could just keep triggering it even if they kill your Sephiroth. It just, you get the ability forever, and that just seems bananas to me. And then also, whenever Sephiroth attacks, you may sacrifice any number of other creatures, and if you do, draw that many cards. So now you just sacrifice as many creatures as you want. And every single one's going to draw a card. Instead of just sacking the one when it enters and drawing 1 card, every turn you get to choose however many you want to sack for free without having to pay mana, and draw cards for each one, and trigger all of your sacrifice or death triggers on every single one of those. It just seems kinda bonkers. Not only that, but you could go the extra mile, and I'm not saying this is going to be the best way to use him, but you could use Agatha's Soul Cauldron, since I can't seem to get through a video without bringing that card up. And you could exile a card that has a cheap transformation cost and put a counter on the Sephiroth. And if you do that, you can just keep transforming him back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And every single time you transform him, you trigger that Supernova, and you get another emblem, and you just stack up the emblems. We're going to have to try it, right? It might be win more. It might just be unneeded, right, and unnecessary. You could probably just win with Sephiroth before getting to the point where you need to dump your mana into doing that. But it also might be absolutely insane. So we're going to have to try it. We're probably going to try both. We're probably going to build a normal Sephiroth Sacrifice Aristocrat style deck. It's going to be one of the first decks I make during Early Access for sure. And we'll also probably try to make some kind of a crazy combo deck with Agatha's Soul Cauldron and cheap transforms as well. And there's a number of cards in this set that you can do that with. So maybe we'll include not just Sephiroth, but a few of the other transforming creatures that could benefit off of very cheap transformations from Agatha's Soul Cauldron. That's definitely got to be a deck. But regardless of that, just Aristocrats in general is insane. I don't know why there have been negative comments about this, that they were expecting so much out of Sephiroth. This card's nuts. This card is absolutely nuts. A 5/5 flyer that you only ever paid 3 mana for, that got you immediate value when you played it, that gives you a Blood Artist ability that we haven't seen literally since Blood Artist, and you keep it in the form of an emblem when he flips. Like, all of this is bananas. Like, all of this is so crazy good. This card is awesome. I mean, there is a part of me, I guess, that wishes there was a Sephiroth that didn't only want to be an Aristocrat-style deck. Maybe there will be one more. We'll have to wait and see. But even if not, there's the possibility of this being worth playing even not in an aristocrat style deck, even just a very go wide aggro deck where maybe the triggers are just extra, right? Maybe you're trying to set up a situation where you can flip this because it's just a 5/5 flyer for 3 mana, and you're also getting some incidental value whenever your board sees creatures die because you're getting those drains, but maybe you're not built around specifically trying to sack things and get the drains. I don't know. Probably not. But I think he's powerful enough that that might be possible. Whichever way you slice it, this card is bananas, and I am super, super excited that they made Sephiroth like this. I can't wait to brew it. Sacrifice decks are some of my favorite decks. My go-to Explorer deck is the Golgari Sacrifice deck, and seeing like one of my favorite characters from the Final Fantasy games being the perfect card for a deck like that just brings the biggest smile to my face. I am so happy with it. If you're not happy with this, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but let me be happy. Let me have this, okay? We're gonna move on to the next card, and that's Summon Bahamut. And that's the last card of this video, guys. This is a 9/9 flying enchantment saga dragon for 9 colorless mana. I can see the gears churning. I can see how Ugin from last set, triggering off of colorless spells, is now starting to matter more and more. This being the absolute end-all be-all colorless summon saga creature probably in this set. I mean, there could be more, but this thing just seems insane. Not only is it a 9/9 flyer for 9 colorless, on chapter 1 and 2 you destroy up to 1 target non-land permanent. Just literally any non-land permanent is gone. On chapter 3 you draw 2 cards, and on chapter 4 you get Mega Flare. It deals damage equal to the total mana value of other permanents you control to each opponent. So again, perfect with Ugin. Ugin is a super expensive card too, and it's going to count towards a significant amount of damage if you have both Bahamut and Ugin in play. So I think that's the direction they're trying to go, and I don't know if we'll completely get there by the time this entire set is spoiled, and that everything we need for a deck like that will be coming in this set, but they're definitely moving in that direction where they want you to use Ugin and Bahamut in the same deck and try to go wide with colorless things that cost a lot. It's definitely worth exploring, and I can't wait to see if there are more cards coming that sort of push in that direction. But don't lose sight of the fact that this is also a 9/9 flyer, guys. This is going to end games super quick, and because it's a creature, you can flicker it to re-trigger the saga abilities. You can just keep destroying things and drawing cards, which is just bananas to me. Another thing that's worth pointing out is because it's a creature, if it's in your graveyard, you can use creature reanimation spells on this card to get it into play super cheap and super easy. We're gonna have to build that deck too. Reanimator with the big nasty summons. I think that's the part of these summons cards that's the most overlooked, is the fact that because they're a creature, you can use all these cards that interact normally only with creatures. Like, they changed a lot of the flicker cards to not be able to target enchantments after sagas came out because it was just broken, being able to flicker sagas. That's why you'll notice most of the standard legal flicker effects over the last 5 or so years, they can all only target artifacts or creatures because they wanted to prevent that. But all of these summons are creatures in addition to being sagas, so they can all just be targeted by anything that can target a creature, which means all of those flicker spells that couldn't target sagas now can target these. All reanimation spells that can only hit a creature can hit these, and I think that's insanely exciting to brew with. I can't wait. I feel like there's multiple deck ideas we can come up with built around some of those concepts. If you have ideas about how you'd want to explore that, let me know in the comments, because again, this one in particular, this will go super, super deep, and there's so much just deck building potential to mine out of this card and all of the summons, to be honest, and I just can't wait to dive in. But that's going to do it for today. There was one other mythic spoiled during the debut over the weekend, but we did cover that one mythic in the previous video that covers all of the rares, uncommons, and commons. If you haven't seen that video already, I'm going to link it in the description in the comments. Make sure you check that out as well, because a lot of those cards are also insanely powerful. And like I said, there is one mythic that we didn't cover here that is in that video, the Cloud mythic that they showed, which is also kind of nuts. So check that video if you there. You can tell I'm tired. I need coffee. I need more coffee. Check that video out if you haven't already. And there are more spoiler videos on the way already. We've started to get new spoilers dropping already, and I'm going to be working on another spoiler video right after this goes up. That one won't be ready right away because we're going to wait for a few more spoilers to drop before I finish it. But I am going to get to work, and there's going to be another spoiler video coming, so look forward to that. I'll see you guys next time. Like, subscribe, do all the things. This set's looking crazy. Thanks so much for checking out my channel. I'd like to give a huge shout out to all of my patrons over at Patreon. Without you guys, this channel would not be possible, so honestly, thank you from the bottom of my heart for all of your contributions. If you haven't yet, like and subscribe. The more likes we get and the quicker we get them, the bigger this channel will grow and the faster it will grow. I'd love nothing more than this channel to become something very special for you guys, but it's entirely up to you how fast that happens. Also, if you'd like more deck text, that's somewhere over there. And if you'd like to see what else the channel's been up to lately, that's somewhere up that way. Also, subscribe, circle below, do all the things.